Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Hyde to my Jekyll. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
I'd like to say this is an extra spooky edition of the Second Tier, but there isn't really much spookiness to be had. I don't know how to make the podcast any spookier other than producer Finn putting a ghost sound effect in right here. Or not. It would probably be even funnier if you just left that gap completely empty, wouldn't it? Justin, how do we feel about Halloween? And I think a couple of managers who we'll get on to very shortly are finding it particularly spooky this year.
How do we feel about Halloween? Halloween's great, I think. I do enjoy it. I don't like the fireworks that come after Halloween, but that's more of a bonfire night situation, which I'm sure we'll get into discuss in a couple of weeks' time. But I think Halloween's decent. I'm an enjoyer of it. Some good parties to be had. I'm just not a big fan of the leftover pumpkins at the end because they go mouldy quickly, and nobody likes that on their porch.
No, I enjoy watching horror films around this time of year. Went to the cinema to watch Five Nights at Freddy's the other day.
Was it good? You enjoy it?
Nah, shy. But horror films are, they're the best bit of Halloween for me.
Are they? I don't get on with horror films at all, mainly because they're all poorly produced and directed and written. They're just not very good films at all.
You watched Midsummer?
Midsummer Murders, yeah.
No, Midsummer is an unbelievable film. Probably the best horror film I've ever seen. Spectacular. Really good.
I read the synopsis on Wikipedia and I wasn't interested.
No, trust me. Really, really good. So it's a spooky time of year, and it's a particularly terrifying time of year for a couple of managers in the Championship. Welcome to the number one Championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, Gareth Ainsworth has lost his job at Queen's Park Rangers. Some may say it's about time, but we'll get onto that very shortly. And literally just before we started recording, Justin Peach informed me Nigel Pearson has left Bristol City. So that has really destroyed our running order. So we've had to quickly make sense of all that. But we'll get onto that very shortly, as well as all the other games from the Championship over the past weekend. Plenty for us to talk about. Not just in terms of managerial departures. We'll do the polls as well, and then we'll finish off with Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight right at the end of the show. So QPR have sacked Gareth Ainsworth. It comes after losing 2-1 to Leicester, their sixth loss in a row, and they sit second from bottom of the Championship. Ironically, this was possibly QPR's best performance of the season so far, but this decision was well overdue, wasn't it?
Yeah, long overdue. It's clear it wasn't going to work towards the end of last season, to be honest with you, but keeping QPR in division probably clouded the judgment of the owners a little bit, and you then start to switch focus naturally to pre-season and potential improvements, but the squad needed a lot more substance adding to it. Gareth Ainsworth, he was linked heavily. Well, they had bids for Josh Knight at Wycombe rejected, and you could just tell the frustration there of him not being able to add the type of play that he needed to really get his style of play going in the right direction. Yes, he had some experience, but still, it just wasn't enough for the type of manager that he is. And sadly, as I say, that those big changes, they never really came, and Ainsworth resorted to the same style of play, deep, poorly organised, I would say, football, and to be honest with you, it caught up with him really, really quickly this season, mainly because I think the division's improved a lot on a technical level, but it just wasn't the right appointment at this time for QPR. Maybe if it was a proper rebuild where the team had a budget and Gareth Ainsworth had time, then he might have been the right man, but we'll never know because those circumstances haven't settled in front of him.
I'm not sure Gareth Ainsworth was ever the right man, Justin. Look, I think he should have gone in the summer. To be honest, Gareth Ainsworth kept QPR up last season, but one of the main reasons why they were in danger in the first place was because of Gareth Ainsworth. And he's been there for 8 months, and there haven't been any signs that he can take QPR in the right direction. The football is appallingly bad. The game plan is hoof it up to Lyndon Dykes or knock it over the top to Sinclair Armstrong. And I just think he was out of his depth in the Championship, and this decision could not have come soon enough.
Yeah, well, you're quite right, and I think the key thing here is, yes, we can point the finger at Ainsworth, but it just wasn't the right appointment. There's a little part of me when he got appointed thinking, Wycombe style of play, it can be a success, but I think the squad was just too different and not in the right fitting of what Ainsworth wanted to deploy at all. If you look at the last few managers, or last several managers that QPR have employed, Jamie Floyd-Hasselbank, Ian Holloway, Steve McLaren, Mark Warburton, Mick Beale, they're not exactly lump it forward kind of managers. Some of them do like to play fast direct football, but it's mainly possession-based football, developing youngsters for the first team, and being a bit more organic in that sense. Whereas Gareth Ainsworth, just get the ball in that final third. Doesn't matter about possession. Defend deep if you need to, or probably always. And it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. It wasn't the right appointment at all. And I think you have to point the finger upstairs as much as you do with Gareth Ainsworth, because it wasn't the right appointment, and unfortunately Gareth Ainsworth wasn't able to tap into the ability of this squad that we've said time and time again.
Yeah, and I respect his positivity. He seems like a good bloke, although Sheffield United fans will constantly disagree with us on that for other reasons, which you can find out for yourselves. However, at times his positivity did come across as pure delusion, saying things like, this is going to be a good season, we're going to finish above the dotted line after 3 losses in a row. Gareth, QPR were top of the Championship a year ago, and now you're talking about just staying up by the skin of their teeth and that being a good season. And he kept coming out with these positive lines, and it was like him beaming into your heads. This was a really positive 6 losses in a row, and let's be honest, he is mad. Not like Pep mad, he's just purely mad. And I mean, he literally got a bloke in to do the hacker. That's how mad Gareth Ainsworth is. Don't get me wrong, he's been great content for the podcast, so I'm going to miss that. I'm also going to miss his luscious locks and his fashion. I'm not going to miss the dire football, the results, or the ridiculous comments after games. And as far as QPR go, they should have made this decision a lot earlier than they have done. Well, the Telegraph is reporting that a familiar face is set to replace Gareth Ainsworth at the Mattrade Loftus Road Stadium, as it's now known. And it's not the hacker man, unfortunately. It's the most predictable appointment of the season, Sir Neil Warnock. And I called this last month, Justin, after he left Huddersfield. I said, what month will he be back at QPR? Literally next month is the answer to that question.
And I genuinely believe that Ainsworth was here to stay till the end of the season, because I had that little faith in the hierarchy making the correct decision. But
it's a heavy weekend for you, really, wasn't it?
To be fair, I was in Italy. I was distracted by pasta and wine.
One too many Morettis.
Exactly. But it's an appointment. It's as obvious as you get, isn't it? I love Warnock, and it's not out of the question when a new job comes up that he gets linked with it and appointed. But I do feel that if he is appointed at your club at this stage in his career, I think it's a failure of the decision making at the very top, isn't it? And that's not I love Neil Warnock. It's not a disrespect to him. It's short term thinking. It's a please put out this fire, please Neil, please, and that's all it is. And it's the problem with QPR is that they're now in this mindset of short termism. Gareth Ainsworth, Neil Critchley, I know those appointments didn't work out, and obviously they were there for the long term, but they are short term appointments. And Neil Warnock's going to be a short term appointment because he's only going to be here until the end of the season. And yes, I do think he can steer QPR outside of the bottom 3, but you've got to say, if he's in charge of your football club, or he has been in charge of your football club in the last 3 years, you made some critical errors at board level.
Yeah, I completely agree, Justin. I find it a bit annoying that poorly run clubs who make bad decision after bad decision can just press the Neil Warnock button.
The Warnock card.
And it solves all their problems. You say the Warnock card, it's essentially a get-out-of-jail-free card, isn't it? And look, Huddersfield deserved to go down last season because they were awful until Warnock showed up, and the QPR hierarchy have made bad decision after bad decision. I just don't get a sense that justice has been done with these clubs.
It's quite harsh to say, isn't it, that justice is relegation for bad running, but then you just pull out the Warnock card. There's only one Neil Warnock, by the way. You can't. As soon as this Warnock card's pulled by a club, that's it. You're gone. Every other team in the division cannot pull that card unless you can tempt him with some romantic decision or reason to leave whoever he's just taken charge of. But you are right. There is this lack of justice in appointing him, but he does give you a second chance. He gives your team a second chance, and QPR need a second chance because he's going to be sweeping up from some serious errors at boardroom level.
Yeah, well, he definitely is. And if they get Warnock in, then their chances of staying up flip quite dramatically, because that is what he does. He comes in, keeps a club up, and rides away into the night on his horse. I mean, it's not the most forward-thinking appointment, but the QPR hierarchy will just want to stay up, won't they?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, this squad is a lot better than its position in the table, and is certainly the best out of the current bottom 4, I would say. So it'll be surprising if Warnock doesn't get a tune out of this team. Whether he keeps them up is another question. I suppose, do you think they perhaps should have gone for someone a bit more long-term than Warnock?
I think QPR are in such a dire state. I would like to see a long-term appointment in. I think there's some really good managers available at the moment, and if they can go down the route of employing, Sheffield Wednesday have made an ambitious appointment in Danny Rule. Going down that route would be great, but in a bit of realism here for QPR, you need someone to come out and put a fire, guide your club in the right direction. This is a really important time for QPR to come in and get Neil Warnock in, essentially. Ease the club into a new path, because, as I say, boardroom mistakes have been made. Gives them time to get things sorted, get a director of football in, or a technical director, whatever it is, to come in and steer the club into a new direction, because they desperately need it, and Neil Warnock gives you that time.
A quick word on Leicester, who beat QPR this weekend and sealed Gareth Ainsworth's fate. 13 wins from 14. They're one win away from matching the Championship record for most consecutive wins, which is 10. And they were made to work for this victory. It eventually came from a wonder goal by Harry Winks. What a beauty that was, and what a player.
What a player, yeah. I mean, his winner will quite rightly take the plaudits, but because it was fantastic. But I think people should divert their attention to his quality of play and importance in that midfield. He averages 85% pass completion, and with a 92% accuracy of passes in opposition half. He doesn't give the ball away, which suggests two things. His choice and quality of pass are important, and he's vital to ensuring possession is ticking over for Leicester in the right areas at the right time. It's important to have that type of midfielder in that position where they don't panic in possession. They play with a calmness, because as a teammate, as a supporter, you need that. You know he's going to find a teammate. I think he's really matured into this role at Leicester under Maresca, and it's really good to see.
Well, only 3 players in the Championship this season have completed over 1,000 passes. And he's completed 1,200. So that just goes to show what he's all about. And against QPR, he completed 127 passes, which is nearly as many as the whole QPR team managed, which is just... I mean, it's insane, isn't it? His passing numbers are insane, and he is so crucial to this Enzo Maresca system. I did have questions about the amount of money they spent on him, and I still think they overspent a bit, but it doesn't matter if they get promoted, because he's been key to this record-breaking start that they're seeing. Let's go to the other managerial departure of the weekend. Nigel Pearson has left Bristol City. It comes after they suffered defeat in the seven-side derby. Cardiff beat them 2-0. It's literally just happened, Justin, as we were alluding to at the start of the show. We started recording just as this announcement was made, but what do you think?
Well, Pearson's been dropping hints, hasn't he? That he's going to be on his way out. He's very cryptic in his comments after the game in midweek, and he was very cryptic again, dropping hints that he's going to be leaving very soon in his post-match comments again after the Cardiff game. I think if I was to look at it critically, all I can say about Bristol City this season is they work very hard. I've not seen anything of Bristol City that suggests they're heading in the right direction this season under Nigel Pearson, other than being a hard-working outfit, and that's not really where you want to be after spending a decent amount of money. And clearly the board aren't trusting him, or the ownership aren't trusting him with spending some of the Alex Scott money either, which I think is quite telling. Obviously there was a lot of complaints from Pearson in the summer about that, or frustrations I should say. So I'm not really surprised that Pearson's gone, and maybe a surprise he's gone this early. I think he was definitely going to go at some point this season. Obviously, not having a new contract is a big tell when you're going into last year's deal as a manager. There's no talks happening. He's alluded to it himself. So yeah, I'm not really surprised. Maybe would have expected him to leave a little bit later in the season, but again, I think Bristol City are in a good position to go out there and get a younger manager who's going to really tap into the potential of this team. Not saying Pearson wouldn't, but I think this is the next step for Bristol City.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he's gone either. It did seem like he was quite frustrated, particularly recently with his whole contract situation. As you say, his deal's up at the end of the season. So if Bristol City don't see him as the man to take him on beyond that, then what's the point in hanging around? And he also seemed quite frustrated with, as you say, not being able to spend much money in the summer either. So, I mean, it makes sense. We've obviously been quite critical about Nigel Pearson and Bristol City over the past few months or what have you, mainly because it's not the most, forward-thinking manager to have in place. But let's give full credit to the guy. In the time that he's been there, he has really steadied the ship. He has taken Bristol City, a club which has spent a hell of a lot of money in recent years, before he came in anyway, and has got them, progressing slowly but surely up the table. And that's really, really positive. He's got some players young lads who He's really developed into first team players and some of the most promising talents in the division. Of course, Alex Scott was one of them before he got sold. So he has done a really good job in that time.
Yeah,
I'm not going to take that away from him. He has. And the only thing I would say is that if Bristol City want to progress and start getting further up the table, I just think someone else needed to come in. And it looks like that's going to happen now. So that leads me nicely on to, Justin, who do you think they should get in?
Again, it comes down to the squad that they've got. They've got a young squad. And I think having a manager who's worked not extensively with youngsters, but you look at Maresca, for example, he's got a lot of experience of working with young players and how young players are coming through at Leicester even this season. I think that's a decent avenue to go down for Bristol City. It's quite hard to pinpoint exactly who. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday, I've mentioned it already in this episode, but there's a quite left field appointment in Danny Rowe, quite a young manager who's got some big ideas, and I think if you can go down that avenue, because Nigel Pearson has been a very safe pair of hands. Football's been very safe. He's a very safe appointment. He's a very solid appointment, but it's not going to take that next step. I mean, one promotion in the last 10 years. I know he spent a bit of time in the Premier League and abroad, but that's ultimately his record. He's had one promotion from the Championship in 10 years, and that was that Leicester side. So again, if you can get a manager who has that ambition to take Bristol City into that next phase, then that would be a really good appointment. If you're looking at young managers, Ian Evatt is one that impresses me in League One. I think that's a good style of play that you can tap into. That's just an example of where Bristol City might want to go down. But as I say, young squad, energetic squad, potentially a decent budget in January, that Alex Scott money. Yeah, there's this. I think good times are ahead for Bristol City.
Yeah, I think that too, and this is what I've been saying to Bristol City fans all this time with Nigel Pearson, is that if you get another manager in, it could be quite exciting, because let's face it, as good a job Nigel Pearson did at Bristol City, they were never going to challenge for the top six while he was there, unfortunately. A new manager, a new exciting young manager, can change everything. So this is an exciting opportunity for Bristol City to, have a gamble on getting someone in, because the foundations have been set brilliantly by Pearson. Get a young manager in, or just, a forward-thinking appointment, and Bristol City could do something quite impressive this season. Of course, there are squads that are stronger than theirs, but if you've got a talented manager coming in, then anything's possible.
Well, I think if you look at Luton Town and Nathan Jones was a bit more on the pragmatic side of things when it comes to his tactics and his style of play, whereas Rob Edwards wanted to tap into the attacking quality of the Luton team. And I think that's really that's the same crossroads Bristol City are at. There's a lot of defensive qualities in that Bristol City team, and a lot of sort of defensive-minded qualities, but there's also a lot of good attacking technical quality in there as well. So I think if a manager can come in and tap into that, like Rob Edwards did at Luton Town last season, I think this team can crack on, and I do stand by it. I think the squad's capable of pushing for the top six. Maybe needs one or two additions to it, but I do think it's in a really good position to really get going, because again, it's a competitive division this season. I think there's a lot of, I wouldn't say average teams, but I think there's going to be a lot of competition in between sort of 7th place and 14th place for that top six berth, and I think there'll be a lot of teams in the conversation come February. And I think Bristol City, they want to be in that conversation, probably do need to make a decision now, and they have done.
Yeah, there's a lot of very talented coaches out there, so Bristol City have a chance now to get one of them in, and try and be a bit more exciting of a side, because right now they're just very mid-table, aren't they? Johnny's 3-word review for Cardiff: Ruben Colwill, baby. Of course, Cardiff beating Bristol City in the 7-side derby, and Ruben Colwill was amongst the goals, someone whose career had very much stalled over the past year, but a brilliant individual goal by him, and fingers crossed that gets things back on track in his career. Cardiff up to 5th with this result, back-to-back wins for them, and it's undeniably been a great start to the season for them, hasn't it?
It has. I think what you've got to recognise is that this is one of their best run of form since an 8-game unbeaten streak in the 2019-2020 season, which shows you how rough it has been over the last few seasons. It also shows you how quickly Bullitt has adapted to the Championship, quicker than I anticipated, and also how he's tapped into the quality of this team. And I still think they're probably not creating as much chances as other teams, but they're taking their chances. I mentioned the stat the other week about them almost equaling their goal record from last season. We're only a quarter of the way through. They're going to blitz that massively, and I think a new manager coming in, giving the team confidence that they've got the quality to go out and do what they're doing now, and that's taking their chances. I think, you've got to praise Cardiff City. Top 6 challenge might well be on, as I say, a lot of not average teams but competitive teams in that mid-table berth, and I think Cardiff again could be in that conversation. Should they keep the consistency going? That's a big ask, but if you've got to play like Ruben Colwill, maybe.
I have been very impressed with how Errol Bullitt has got multiple players raising their games. I mean, Perry and G is the main one who's been superb this season at right back, but you've got both Mark McGuinness and Jamilu Collins at the back, who also are in that category, Joe Rawls as well, and the 2 Greek lads they brought in, Siopis and Gautas, have been very clever additions, and Gautas in particular has been excellent. So it's all going very well. I think they're a lot better defensively than they are going forwards. If someone like Ruben Colwill can, start finding the potential that he had earlier on in his career, then maybe that will all change quite quickly. We'll have to wait and see with that. But Cardiff are doing a lot better than I expected, I've got to say. 3 losses from 3 games for Wayne Rooney and Birmingham. After Southampton beat them at 3-1, there are a chance of you getting sacked in the morning from Southampton fans towards Rooney. I think this was better from Birmingham, Justin. They showed more fight, but I'm not sure if that's just a low bar already, because it was ultimately still quite comfortable for Southampton, wasn't it?
I think that's the most damning thing. It's been a very comfortable 3 games for Birmingham City's opposition since Wayne Rooney's taken charge, and that's more so his blueprint for what he wants to play. He's mentioned that the players aren't comfortable playing it, and that's an important point that you've got to sort of take on board as a manager, is that if your players aren't comfortable with your style of play just yet, then don't play your style of play just yet. Just ease them into it rather than persisting with what you're doing. And you are right, they were a lot more structured, disciplined in this game, but still Southampton did find it fairly easy to score their goals. Some of the defending was quite passive again at moments, and that's a big thing that Wayne Rooney needs to sort out. And again, I don't think Birmingham would have conceded the goals they've conceded under Wayne Rooney under John Eustace.
Yeah, and I think that's a completely fair point. It's a shame, because the previous manager, I'd have fancied Birmingham to get something from this. What we got in the end was another game where they were quite clearly second best. In fairness, the first goal was offside and Birmingham had a clear penalty turned down. However, on the balance of play, only one team deserved to win this, and it wasn't the team in blue. They've now gone from inside the playoffs to bottom half of the table in the space of a week. Their next 2 games are Ipswich and Sunderland. So it doesn't get any easier, I'm afraid, Wazza. The question is, when do we press the panic button? Justin, is your hand kind of hovering over it, or is it still very much in your pockets?
I'm quite a chill guy, so I'm not anywhere near the panic button. It's still under one of those plastic covers, like a fire alarm. You don't want to stop people bumping into it and pressing it by accident. No one wants to get sacked by accident. So the cover's still on it, and I'm just sat by the desk at the moment, not doing too much. I'm not panicking or stressed. I think Wayne Rooney, there's no midweek games for a few weeks, so Wayne Rooney's got a lot more time to dabble with his squad and get his squad transitioning into a philosophy that is the right balance between John Eustace and Wayne Rooney. But I think the important thing is to really understand is Wayne Rooney and John Eustace are completely different managers. Style of play is different, personality is different, and that's the transition that didn't need to happen this early on in the season. Probably March, April would have been a better time to do it, Gary Cook. But I think that's the key thing that needs to be transitioned. Is he's got time to do it now. So I'm not panicking. I'm not worried. But I think after November, that's when, I say November, it's in a couple of days. After that next international break, that's when you start to really judge Rooney's team.
Yeah, well, Ipswich and Sunderland, there's a very realistic chance that Birmingham could have 5 losses in 5 under Wayne Rooney, which is it wouldn't be a good look, would it? Especially after all the outrage after John Eustace's dismissal. So, yeah, I'm definitely not panicking just yet, but the slide down the table may cause a bit of alarm after we've got past those 2 games. Patry with a 3-word review for Southampton, starting to gel, and it's going rather well for Southampton, isn't it? They're unbeaten in 6, picking up 14 points from a possible 18 in that time, now up to 4th. They're looking more and more dangerous as the games go by, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Russell Martin should have a lot of praise, because a lot of the flaws in his side of play that were present back in August, September time starting to iron him out, which is great. There's a huge shift in character, organisation on the pitch, in game management, and that's a big plus for Southampton if they're going to sustain performances and sustain results and be a lot more consistent. I mean, you saw it in the second half in this game. Birmingham wrestled some control in that second half, earlier on in the second half, and Southampton got it back, and I don't think they would have done that mid-September. I think Birmingham would have slowly gained confidence and maybe walked over them. So, yeah, credit to Martin for making his tweaks or having the conversations to get that control back into that second half, because it could have been a bit hairy.
Yeah, it could have been a bit hairy. I mean, the amount of ability in this team always meant it was going to be difficult to see it struggling for too long, and now they're very much a team to be feared. I mean, Charlie Alcaraz is a very talented player, as is Suleimana. Stuart Armstrong, I think, massively falls into the category of players you don't really appreciate in the Premier League, but then look very good when they come down to the Championship. Flynn Downs has been brilliant recently, and Taylor Harwood-Bellis has strengthened that defence so much, and that's why I rate him so highly. Not sure about Gavin Bazunu in goal. I've seen him make too many errors in these first 14 games now, including what was a clear penalty against Birmingham. But overall, they're going really well. And I suppose the big question that Southampton fans are wondering, Justin, is, are you starting to be more convinced about Russell Martin as a manager?
Well, I've mentioned that he's starting to iron out those flaws in his style of play. So absolutely. He probably needed to do this last season with Swansea. It just took a while for him to turn a really poor run of form round, but he's got the quality of play to do it now. And yes, there were huge questions being asked of him from me. I didn't think he could get out of that slump, because it was bad, wasn't it? It was really, really bad. Performances wise, and midfield organisation was just dreadful, not there at all. But credit to him, credit to Southampton, and again, a lot of kudos to Russell Martin for turning it around, because, as I say, you can't just tell your players to be more steely and more disciplined in games. You've got to coach it into them. You've got to reiterate your messages, and good managers do that. It's a fair play.
It's like on Football Manager, isn't it, when you make a substitute and you tell your sub, go out there and make a difference. It doesn't always work, even though we try it every single time. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about the West Yorkshire derby and also more pressure on David Wagner at Norwich. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Leeds were in top form in the West Yorkshire derby against Huddersfield. They beat them 4-1. James's 3-word review for Leeds, and I love this, Justin. Pissing third place. That's very much how it's looking for Leeds at the moment, isn't it? The thing is, this is another game where Leeds were just frighteningly good. We've had it several times now already this season, haven't we? In fact, I'd say we've seen more top gear performances from Leeds this season than we have from Ipswich or Leicester. Yeah. It's just about trying to match the consistency of those two, which is obviously ridiculously difficult because they're not showing any signs of faltering. However, when Leeds are on top form, they are wonderful to watch, aren't they?
The transitions in this game were frighteningly fast. So fast. I know they've got quick players, but that is fork ball at its finest. And you mentioned a really good point there I just want to draw on, is that they've probably had more top gear games than Leicester and Ipswich, but I think that's the difference between obviously finishing in the top two and outside the top two. Is Leicester have had more games where they've been in second gear and first gear, not been playing particularly well, and they still come out with results. And Leeds had that in midweek against Stoke, where they didn't play particularly well and lost the game, and that's the difference between finishing the top two. But credit to them, because they turned it around and they just went straight for Huddersfield and did not let go, did not let their grasp go. And again, you're right, they've got to sustain and be more consistent with these performances. But it was such a good watch at times, and the transitions in that first half were quick. Somerville's feet are incredible. Come on, they're just absolutely fantastic. He's such a talent, and you've got to credit Leeds for the bounce back. It could have been a difficult game, a derby game.
Yeah, the boy Crescencio has got 2 goals and 2 assists in this game. Just an outstanding performance from him again. And take your mind back to literally a week ago, Justin, he absolutely tore Norwich apart.
Yeah.
So for him to be putting in an even better performance a week later is quite something. I mean, that front four of him, Pirro, Ruta and James has been sensational so far, and it's meant someone like Italian international Willy Nonto has barely had a look in. Remember when there was that whole saga with him making it publicly known that he wanted to leave? He's just not been needed. So they're an excellent side who have been playing terrifically well. The only problem is, because of the ridiculous standard being set by the top two, they can't afford sloppy results like losing to Stoke in midweek. So that's the only thing they've just got to try and iron out, although I'm not sure if the standards being set by the top two are realistic or not. A 3-word review on Huddersfield here from the Town Social. Destination League One. And Always Town says, rudderless ship sinking. It's a bit strange that the last team outside of the bottom three that Huddersfield didn't lose to was Ipswich, of all teams. The Championship, ladies and gentlemen. But after a decent start by Darren Moore, it's 1 win in 7, now back-to-back losses. And all of a sudden they're looking like they're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, well, we've said time and time again, haven't we, that this squad just isn't good enough. I don't think... Darren Moore was always going to have issues, and I do rate him as a manager. But unfortunately, he's not Neil Warnock, is he? He's not going to have this intervention, godlike intervention that he has. Darren Moore, as far as we know, is just a normal man. And as you saw with Warnock, it takes an exceptional manager to get a lot out of this Huddersfield squad. So they were overperforming under Neil Warnock, and now they're underperforming under Darren Moore, and it's a bad place to be, because that squad's not good enough to be underperforming, because they are getting panned fairly often. I think they've now conceded 4 on 4 occasions this season, which just isn't good enough, and obviously 2 in the last 2 games. Conceded 4 in the first 55 in midweek to Cardiff, conceded 4 in the first half here. Don't think that's all down to Darren Moore, down to quality of the squad and game plan and concentration, because they're conceding sloppy goals, avoidable goals, and that's they are uncontrollables for a manager.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of anger directed towards Darren Moore, which I think is just completely unfair. He's having to work with what he's got, and it's not a lot, is it? I still regard this team as probably the worst in the league. It's certainly between them and Rotherham. I mean, be honest, Justin, how many of these players would comfortably get into other Championship sides? I'd say Hellick, Sorba Thomas, Lee Nichols, perhaps a couple of others.
Thomas is debatable now, isn't he?
Thomas has certainly looked a lot better than he did last season, but even then, I get your point.
Well, you are right. They say it's a good comparison. Nichols is even making mistakes. I mean, praising Somerville for his quick feet, but one of his goals was a very slow pass into under Nichols. I know he was unsighted, but there's just been a drop in form from some key individuals, which just isn't good enough. I like Matty Pearson a lot, but even his form this season hasn't been great, even under Neil Warnock. So, yeah, there's a bad drop in quality, and obviously when you take out a Neil Warnock, who is this X factor in your team, it's not ideal.
No, it's definitely not. And by and large, this squad is well below Championship standards, isn't it? I mean, you've got young Kian Harrop up front as the lone striker, and he was on loan in League Two last season. So this is what Darren Moore is working with. It's not great. So I feel like a bit of perspective needs to be had here. It's still very early days in his tenure, so I'd still say it's too early to properly judge him. I mean, he was always going to struggle when, even Neil Warnock was struggling somewhat with this squad. So it's no surprise that Darren Moore's just running into similar problems, isn't he? Mm-hmm. The pressure continues to pile on David Wagner and Norwich after they lost again, this time a 3-1 defeat away at Sunderland. 3-word review from the Canaries down under. It's getting worse. And Curtis says, nosediving to relegation. Michael says, club in freefall. 7 losses in 10 games. The Norwich City editor for the Eastern Daily Press, Paddy Davitt, wrote after this result, the game is up. The head coach has run out of ideas and inspiration. And it seems like, from what I'm seeing, Justin, the fans seem to think similarly.
It's bad when your local press is putting that out. It's very rare that they openly put those things out. So it must be bad. I mean, I've seen a lot of the comments. It's turning quite ugly. A lot of fan frustration online. And unfortunately, I understand it. A lot of the flaws that this Wagner side is showing, I mean, we pointed out back in March, April and in the off-season, game management has been really poor. They get opened up no matter whether they press or drop off, and they've won 1 in 9 now, and it's just not good enough for the experience they've got, for the quality they've got. Gabriel Sara is one of the best creative, or the best creative midfielder in the division. Johnny Rowe's been in great form, and unfortunately no one else is pulling forwards with that team, and you've got to put that down to the manager, how he organises his team and how he puts together his game plan and tactics, because unfortunately literally nothing is working.
Yeah, and it's the drop-off for me, which is the most frightening thing, going from arguably the best team in the league in the first few games to 17th now is incredibly alarming. The game management just isn't there. Defensively, they have been a car crash for weeks now. They've now had the joint most goals conceded, and I think they've got to make a decision sooner rather than later to save their season.
who's going to make that decision? Because I've seen reports that Stuart Webber's on his way out.
Well, apparently he's not. There's contrasting reports about this now, Justin, which just adds to the whole murky waters behind the scene, doesn't it? So you've got a sporting director who is apparently soon on his way out, but actually no, it's going to be later in the year now. And then you've got this new sporting director who's not meant to start again until next month. So who's going to be making a decision here on the manager or his successor?
But you made this point in midweek, didn't you? That Stuart Webber's going to be, if he's going to see out his notice period, it's March, isn't it? That is his long notice period. That's when he comes out. And do you want your next manager being dictated by someone who's going to be leaving the club in either the next 2 weeks or next 3 months? No, you want it to be done by the new guy coming in who just isn't at the club yet. It's a terrifying situation to be in, because Norwich are dropping like a stone. Manager's not getting a tune out of the squad. You've got injuries to key players. You need to make a big decision here, and you just can't, because who's running the football club? Nobody. Literally nobody.
That's it. And that's why Norwich are a bit of a mess behind the scenes right now. And this all goes back to our concerns pre-season. I've had a very nice time reading some of the nice messages from Norwich fans when we predicted them to have quite a poor season. I had them as my big underachievers, and now it's starting to look like that. All these things are just culminating into what is turning out to be a bit of a mess, and only 14 games into the season.
Yeah.
It's not good. Now, if anyone wants a good Halloween costume in the Norwich area, dress up as Jack Clark, because they'll be having nightmares about him for months after his performance. He was unplayable here, Justin Peach.
I saw his numbers. They were ridiculous. He enjoyed his... Was it? I can't remember if it was at home or not. It was at Sunderland, wasn't it? But he enjoyed himself. He really did. I mean, he's quality, and we've mentioned him several times already this season. He's got the ability to just turn games on, turn games off whenever he wants, and he's having the season of his life, which again contrasts it to 2 or 3 years ago, where just had no idea whether he was going to pick up form, and where he is now. He's the division's best attacking player, all-round attacking player, and he's scoring goals as well. He enjoyed himself. He really did. And Sunderland did as well. It's incredible.
Yeah, probably one of the best individual performances you'll see all season. I'm glad he actually scored, because that's the least he deserved from this game. Got an assist as well, which was unbelievable. I counted it. He's got 7 Norwich players around him. He's just that difficult to stop, and he still managed to thread the ball through to Dan Neil. Unbelievable. He dribbled past 8 players in this game, created 5 chances. Just a remarkable player who's getting better and better. And just when you think that's it, he can't keep playing any better than this, he does. Without a doubt, one of the main contenders for player of the season so far. Of course, still very early days, but I mean, if he's getting better and better, then my God, it could be like Messi come the end of the season. Sheffield Wednesday have finally won a game. My lords, they beat Rotherham 2-0 in the South Yorkshire derby. It's the first time they've won a game in 90 minutes since the League One playoff semi-final against Peterborough in May. My God.
That's a long time to wait, isn't it?
Ridiculous, isn't it?
We laugh, but that's bad. Yeah, that's harsh.
Yeah, more than 5 months ago. Jesus Christ. And they actually ended up winning this quite comfortably too. And I suppose the question is now, Justin, could this be start of Wednesday getting on a roll?
Ryan.
I'm not going to stop. You can squint as much as you want, Justin. I'm going to keep up with these rule puns.
I wanted to.
And if you don't like it, you got to roll with it.
For fuck's sake, I really wanted to praise Wednesday. I'd apologise to Wednesday fans here, because they don't deserve that. They deserve to roll in this win.
Yes, he's on board.
Oh, we've ruined this, haven't we? I don't know where to go from here. Wednesday fans, they were really good. I mean, I expected Rotherham to again be a difficult side to beat, but they just had nothing to offer, which is quite staggering, really, because Sheffield Wednesday haven't, up until this game, hadn't scored in 10 hours of football, and obviously hadn't won a game in 90 minutes since May, which is a long time. And Rotherham looked the worst team in the division against them. And again, that's saying something, because Wednesday have been the worst team in the division so far this season. Can it be the start of a run of form? I hope so, because Wednesday fans have had it rough over the last few weeks. But all we've got to go by is that Danny Rose has tapped into some of the quality in the squad, and I know they lost 3-0 in midweek, but it was better, and there has been an improvement in this game. And Masaba was good. Michael Smith took his chances, and the bar has been low, so it's pretty hard to assess where Wednesday are going to go. But this is a huge start. Huge
start. I'm just looking at it now. This was the most shots they've had in a league game this season. So clearly, Danny Rule has managed to, find something in this Wednesday team. And I've been saying this, Wednesday's squad is poor and it's very unbalanced, but there is some talent in here. The likes of Josh Windass, Barry Bannon, etc. Masaba's looked a talented player in bits and pieces. So, there is, the tools to work with here for Danny Rule, and they were nowhere near. This squad is nowhere near as bad as 3 points from 13 games. I can say that much for sure. So it's been a long time coming. I'm glad Danny Rule has finally got off the mark, and hopefully this is Wednesday now beginning to have a bit of a fighting chance at staying up. It's still a long way to go because it's been such a crap start, but we saw a lot more encouragement here than we have from anything else that we've seen so far. So hopefully this can get them some momentum. And, full credit to Danny Rule as well, because Isker Munoz had plenty of games and didn't have anything that looked anything like this performance, did he? So I think he deserves a lot of credit. And I'm starting to believe a bit in Danny Rule. Sex, drugs and Danny Rule. Get it? Yeah, good. Is worth saying Sheffield Wednesday have been put under a registration embargo by the EFL because of money owed to HMRC. It means Wednesday cannot register any players without prior written consent. It comes after Chansiri, the owner, said he would stop funding the club after being treated unfairly. I did see this, and it isn't really a surprise to me, Justin, because if they're owing money and the owner's not putting money into the club anymore, then it's not a surprise that something like this has happened, is it?
No, and I think that's the worst part about it, is the fact that you're not surprised that the owner's deciding to stop putting money in because he's spat his dummy out, pretty much. Well, I mean, I said it a few weeks, didn't I? How I described him, called him a tosser, and this is a depiction of that statement. You just don't do that to a football club. I know you are getting stick, but you are getting stick because you've not made the right decisions and you've made the club a laughing stock. You've just almost dragged the reputation of the football club through the mud this season because of some really poor decision making and bad relationships you've harnessed. And he's now pulled this move out. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. That isn't going to be bleeped out considerably because it has really angered me, this move.
Yeah, well, on Rotherham, obviously a terrible result for them. They have signed Daniel Ayala this week, though.
It's a good signing.
Didn't realise he was still playing, to be honest. Let's move on to probably the shock result of the weekend. Middlesbrough 0, Stoke 2. Middlesbrough had won 6 in a row prior to this, but came unstuck here. 3-word review from Every Step Along the Way podcast. Stoke are back. Stokey Tom says it's coming together. And Liam says, surprised and impressed. And I think I'd definitely agree with Liam on this one. If you told me during the international break that Stoke would win 9 points from Sunderland, Leeds and Middlesbrough, I would have laughed in your face. But that is exactly what's happened. And I'm just not really sure where this form has suddenly come from, Justin.
Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise because if I was Alex Neil, I would have been very fearful of losing my job going into last international break because form and performances were terrible, game plans weren't existing, game management wasn't there, and it was bad. It was really bad. But they've beaten 3 really strong teams, 3 teams who will be looking at trying to get promotion this season. 3 teams other than Sunderland actually were Leeds and Boro in a decent vein of form. So yeah, it's massive. But I think what you've got to consider over the last 3 games, the repeat factor that has really helped them get over the line is the fact that they defended their box really, really well, which they haven't really done all season. It's not helped that they've not really had personnel available. But Luke Manali's been a rock in those 3 games. Michael Rose was brilliant in this game against Middlesbrough, and that's been the key deciding factor for me, that they've built on a solid foundation, and hopefully that's the start of form. But it'd be very Stoke for them now to lose the next 3 games. So it's hard to get carried away.
Yeah, it would be very Stoke, wouldn't it? We've kind of got used to that over the years, so it would not be a surprise to see that happen. But I think the person who deserves a lot of credit here is Alex Neil. After the amount of stick he got before the international break and with the calls for him to go, he's massively turned it around in such a short period of time. And he's made some big calls as well, bringing Dwight Gale back into the fold has been a surprise. It was like Lord Lucan knocking on your door and asking for a fiver because I just kind of forgot he existed. But
did you see Josh Lawrence's tweet to Dwight Gale?
Yeah, he hit him with the old Ian Wright.
I thought you was dead.
Mr. Gale, I thought you were dead. But yeah. Stoke, go back to Stoke. They have got a good side. Luke McNally, we've mentioned recently, is a brilliant centre half. Mehdi Leris on the wing is someone I've been impressed by since he's come in. Keanu Hoyve is an excellent fullback. It's a blow losing Mark Travers in goal. He's been recalled by Bournemouth, so we'll see how they cope with that. But it has been an amazing week for Stoke. I'm not sure how long this good form will continue, but it's certainly changed the atmosphere because it was a bit sour prior to the last international break. Ipswich's ridiculous start to the season continued. They beat Plymouth 3-2. They continue to have had the best start in Championship history, behind only Leicester. Gary's 3-word review for Ipswich: McKenna is magic. Ipswich not at the best here, but still getting the result, which I suppose is a sign of a good side and that they are the real deal. Why are you pulling that face?
A little bit of luck on their side in this game, let's be honest. Come on.
That's what I'm saying. We weren't at the best.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. I mean, good teams get that rub of the green. I don't know how in football, but it just happens, doesn't it? Because they were lucky that George Edmondson wasn't sent off and his goal equalised.
Well, Justin. I have seen that a few times, and controversially, I think Edmondson might have got the ball.
Yeah.
There's one replay where it's just sideways on, kind of, and you see Edmondson's got the ball, and I don't think there's much contact with Bundu either. Maybe, that's just what I saw anyway.
Of course, because you've got your Ipswich tinted glasses on.
Plus, I thought it is outside the box as well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just think it was a red card. I think it was a red card and a free kick. But I've seen a picture where the contact is inside.
That as well. I think Ipswich fans would also point out they've got two defenders who were side on from Edmondson. So,
well, the evidence is stacked against you, but it's clear that these glasses.
I just think when I saw it first time, and it was from the normal TV angle, I thought, oh God, how's he not been sent off there? Replays, I can see why the linesman, who I'm guessing has made that decision, has said, I think Edmondson's got the ball there. That's all I'm going to say, because it looks like a bit more pace has gathered on the ball after he's made that tackle. Yeah. But we'll leave that one there, because I'm sure that's not going to go down well with Plymouth fans. George Hurst was amongst the goals. He's now got a goal and 3 assists in his last 4 games. And I remember at the start of the season we were saying that up front is the one position Ipswich really needs to strengthen, but he's been great so far, and the results have shown that, haven't they?
Yeah, he's a handful. I think that's the key thing with him. He's been a handful, and Josh Coburn's been the same. I'm looking at sort of gangly forwards who are quite difficult to defend against, aren't exactly clinical, because neither are. Josh Coburn's not been clinical for Boro, and Josh Hurst hasn't been clinical for Ipswich. But the difference is Josh Hurst has been scoring some decent goals, and what he does with the teammates that he's got around him, Conor Chaplin, Hutchinson as well. They're players that are going to stick around him. He's going to be able to get the ball to him, and that's really probably what he's there for. A bit of a bit, not a false 9, but a false forward who allows others to thrive around him. He's that type of forward, and he has done it, and he's chipped in, which is important.
Yeah, he's an excellent foil for those attacking players, isn't he? The likes of Chaplin, Broadhead, Hutchinson. He's brilliant for playing 1-2s, making space for those other attackers. But he also showed against Plymouth that he can score as well with a brilliantly taken goal. I think Ipswich would still like to strengthen up front in January, because Hurst, I'm not sure he's the best option, but he's shown that he's more than capable of being that guy. I mean, they have scored the joint most goals in the league, so it's clearly not a big problem for them, is it? So, 3-word review for Plymouth from Ryan, who said we deserved more. Brilliant goal for Morgan Whittaker, by the way. God. He has been on fire for Plymouth. Speaking of wonderful goals, a wonder goal from Jayden Philogene saw Hull beat Preston 1-0. That goal, Justin, my lord, dribbling from his own half, going past 3 players before a brilliant finish. Goal of the weekend, without a doubt. Would you go as far to say goal of the season so far?
I do like individual efforts, and this is definitely, it enters a conversation. As long as it doesn't get topped between now and the end of the season, it enters a conversation. He nearly did it before, I don't know what time in the game it was, but he almost did it before he actually scored as well. So he could have had 2 individual efforts in the bag against Preston, but he's that quality. He's got that sort of quality, and we were sort of humming and ahhing about that fee that Hull paid. I think they've had Villa's pants down. Incredible.
Now you look at it, you're looking at it thinking that as well. And I mean, he has been sensational for Hull so far. Yeah. If you look at his underlying data, he has been flying in a Hull City shirt, and yeah, they did pay a fair bit of money from him, so you'd expect that. But based off what we've seen of him previously at this level, Justin, he's come on leaps and bounds compared to the player that we saw in previous seasons, hasn't he?
Well, we've not complained, but we've been concerned about the amount of games that Liam Rossini's teams draw. Jaden Philogene, the difference between drawing games and winning games. I mean, he scored the winner in this one, but he's going to be the main difference, and to carry that sort of weight on his shoulders is quite a big thing. And again, I've said it in almost every season that players like Jaden Philogene need a bit of arrogance about you, and that arrogance comes from just wanting to get the ball and run at players and then score. And it takes an arrogant kind of player to. In a good way, by the way, it takes an arrogant player to take the ball in their own half, dribble past half a team, and then score. And that's what you need. And I think that's what you need when you need to turn those draws into wins. And as I say, did it in this game, and he's going to do it time and time again this season.
He's got to have a bit of arrogance, hasn't he? When you're dribbling past as many players as he is on a regular basis, you've got to have a bit of cockiness about you. I mean, he's just 21 years old as well, so the amount of talent that he has got for someone so young feels like he's older than that, because he's been around in the Championship for quite a while, but he has got talent in abundance, shoots a lot, so you can tell he has got a bit of a confidence in him. But, keep shooting, lad, because he's clearly causing loads of problems for opposition teams. A brilliantly taken goal by Liam Cullen saw Swansea win 1-0 away at Blackburn. I quite like what's going on at Swansea. Results have been a bit up and down so far, but I look at the squad, loads of young talent there. Michael Duff's a great manager. I think they could be one to watch. So a good result for them. A 91st minute equaliser from Mileta Rajovic saw Watford draw 2-2 with Millwall. This game is quite chaotic. Adam Barrett still looking for his first win as Millwall caretaker boss. Stewart's 3-word review for Watford can't defend crosses. And then the final game of the weekend is a West Midlands derby between Coventry and West Brom on Monday night. We'll discuss that game in Thursday's episode. Let's do the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter. Just want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked was this: which manager is doing a better job this season, Enzo Maresca or Kieran McKenna?
Yeah, Kieran McKenna. I think when you look at resources, we had this conversation, haven't we? Resources dictate the outcome of that answer. So Kieran McKenna, but Leicester are just brilliant. They're just brilliant.
They're just both brilliant, aren't they? Let's be honest.
Just enjoying both.
Yeah, it's the Rio Ferdinand meme, isn't it? Can't we just enjoy them both, man? Unbelievable. 76% of people said Kieran McKenna, 24% said Maresca. If your current manager got sacked, would you take Nigel Pearson at your club, yes or no?
Depends where I am in the league and what the circumstances are.
Derby County and Paul Warne.
Yes. I'll take anybody. Billy Davis, come back, please.
I would love it if Billy Davis went back to Derby. 77% of people said no, 23% said yes. And finally, do you enjoy Halloween? Yes, no, or indifferent?
I mean, yes, I love a bit of Halloween. It's the descent into Christmas. I don't really like Christmas. I prefer Halloween, to be honest, actually.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a very strange point of view, but fair enough. 48% said no, 32% said indifferent, 20% said yes. So there you go.
Wow.
Now it's time for this.
Hi, Simon Grayson here.
Yes, it's time for Simon Grayson's Hateful 8. So I'm going to ask Justin to name 8 of a certain subject. All he's got to do is name all 8. So, for example, if I would say name Steve Bruce's last 8 clubs, he would say Villa, that's 1 down, Newcastle, that's another down. But if Justin would say Weymouth, he would lose a life. So all he needs to do is give me all 8 answers. Justin, you've got 2 lives on this one, which I think is fair with this question. Of course, Gareth Ainsworth is no longer the manager at QPR, so let's have a look back at the Rangers managers of the past. Can you name for me the last 8 QPR managers prior to Gareth Ainsworth? Justin has got a massive grin on his face. Why is that?
Because I mentioned them all at the start of the episode.
You did mention a few. Now, it would be really embarrassing if you didn't get them all, wouldn't it, after that?
Do you want my hands in view so I don't scroll up on my notes?
Yes.
I'm going to get pins and needles, but okay, why not? Oh, shit. Gareth Ainsworth.
No, prior to Gareth Ainsworth.
Yeah, but no, I'm just trying to... My own brain ticking over.
Okay.
Gareth Ainsworth, Mick Beale, Neil Critchley.
Well, one at a time, please. Jesus
I'm sorry.
Christ. Which one are you saying?
Neil Critchley.
Neil Critchley, yes, he was
Mick
there
Beale.
prior to Gareth Ainsworth. Can you just calm down, please?
My hands are in the air. I'm losing blood in my fingers. It's getting uncomfortable.
Chill.
Can you hurry up, please?
Bro, chill. All right? Thank you. Neil Critchley was there for just 3 months before Gareth Ainsworth, winning just one game, and has got the lowest win percentage of any QPR manager ever. Justin, can I have your second guess, please?
Mick Beale.
Mick Beale is correct. You didn't have to go that close into the microphone for that.
Sorry, guys.
Yes, Mick Beale is correct. Justin is hissing in the background. But yeah, he had QPR top of the league before sneaking out the door to go to the other Rangers in Scotland. That's 2 down, 6 to go.
Is this enough of the life stories of each candidate that I'm going through?
Can
Mark
we just have your
Warburton's
next
next
one,
one.
please? I
Mark
don't
Warburton.
like your attitude today.
I don't like your management of this Simon Grayson.
Mark Warburton is correct. He was there for 3 years. Did a very good job. Is that right?
That's better.
Yeah, there we go. 3 down, 5 to go.
Steve McLaren.
Steve McLaren is correct. Him and Casper the Snake were there for 1 season. So you're halfway there.
Casper the Snake.
It's a reference to Bob Mortimer's podcast. It's very rogue reference, but it's a funny one.
Okay. You got Steve McLaren. He took over Ian Holloway.
He did. 1.5 years at Loftus Road for Ollie. That's 5 down, 3 to go, Justin.
Who could forget Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's tenure?
Of course. Just under a year there for JFH. That is correct. 6 down, 2 to go, 2 lives remaining. Surely he's got it from here.
So this is where my notes stopped. Chris Ramsey was in charge, but I don't know if that was a caretaker or interim spell, but I'm going to throw him in there anyway.
Chris Ramsey was correct. He was there on a full-time basis. He saw QPR get relegated from the Premier League in 2015 and got sacked in the season after not very long. So you've got 1 remaining, Justin.
Of course, it's now everybody's favourite manager who's not a manager. It's Harry Redknapp.
Is he everyone's favourite?
Well, he's just like not the common people, the non-football fan favourite, I should say.
Because he was on I'm a Celebrity. Is that what
Yes.
you're basing it on? Okay. What about Dennis Wise?
Dennis Wise, everybody. It's him or
Yeah.
Dennis Wise.
Harry Redknapp is correct. He was there for 2 years and got them promoted from the Championship in the 2014 playoff final. So you are correct. Well done, Justin Peach. Did you have a look at Wikipedia before we started recording? Is that what happened?
Yeah, because I put them in my notes because I made a really good point at the start of this episode.
Great. Well, that's completely ruined that Hateful Eight, hasn't it? But I'm glad you've had a nice time. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's been Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday for a preview episode of all the games coming up in the Championship next weekend. Might have some managerial news on that front as well, particularly at QPR. Is old Neil making his return? Well, we'll have a chat about that on Thursday. So we look forward to seeing you then. As always, if you won't mind spending a few seconds of your time giving us a 5-star review on whichever podcast platform you're listening to us on, it helps us go a long way. So we would greatly appreciate it if you do that. In other news, we'll see you again on Thursday. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.